Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
Vince Coglianese.
Well, good afternoon to you. It is 3:07 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, we talk to Mark Krikorian from the Center for Immigration Studies about the border crisis and its effects on the country and what he would like to hear tonight from Kamala Harris, who's, what do they call her? The border czar. We'll talk to Mark about that. Coming up at 4:30 from the Daily Signal, great news outlet Rob Bluey joins us. We'll talk to him about that debate this evening. Some chaos about whether or not ABC would allow him in. Turns out it's resolved. We'll tell you all about that. Rob's joining us at 4:30. 5 o'clock, the mother of Rachel Morin, Patty Morin, joins us. You know, Rachel was attacked, murdered in Maryland by an illegal alien. Patty Morin among a number of families today testifying before Congress. We'll talk to her about her testimony and the message she has for the country. And Curtis Houck is here from Newsbusters at 5:30. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Well, yeah, we do have some heavy topics to get to today because, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have created chaos. But I want to start it with something light, though. And it gets into a heavy topic. And it's this. Today, before the House Judiciary Committee, Eric Swalwell lost his mind again. Fang Fang's boyfriend was having a rough time today. He's upset about all of the memes that the right is sharing right now, depicting Donald Trump rescuing adorable animals. Have you been on social media at all in the last 24 hours? Have you seen any of these? They're AI generated, just images of President Trump rescuing ducks or cats, little cute cats or puppies. He's holding an armful of puppies. He's rescuing all these animals, and all of the memes depict him as the protector of small, adorable animals and critters everywhere, that he's going to protect them from Kamala Harris and the dastardly left. And the reason these memes exist is because we've been talking about that there are citizens of the town of Springfield, Ohio. It's a small town. It's 58,000 people. Springfield, Ohio. This is Trump country. Who say that they are witnessing the recent arrival of 20,000 Haitian foreign nationals. 20,000. That's in a town of just under 60,000 people. Let's do the math. That's 25% of the town's population now is just arrived Haitian foreign nationals. So that's what they're dealing with. And so I don't care what country you come from, if you're a foreign national, if you're from every country, all of a sudden your town's population is now 25% people who are not from there at all, bringing their cultures, their customs, their thoughts, their processes, all just arrived like that. How can you assimilate in an environment like that? That's impossible. You can't. You're overwhelmed. You're completely overwhelmed. And so the town of Springfield, Ohio, is completely overwhelmed. I played some audio yesterday from a local town council meeting in Springfield, Ohio, where one gentleman was reporting that he said local animals are being consumed, that they're grabbing ducks, cutting their heads off, eating them. This is not me saying this. This is a resident of Springfield, Ohio.
I really challenge you guys to get out here and do something. These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into they flipping cars in the middle of the street. And I don't know how, y'all can be comfortable with this. I don't know, who's getting paid from it. I honestly feel like someone's getting paid from it in the background. You got a bunch of people on a bus getting dropped off at a gas station to come down here. I know a single mom that FaceTimed me this morning at the welfare office that really need something. And it's nothing but immigrants over there. And I don't even want to seem like I'm coming down on the immigrants because it's the people that's bringing them down here. Because wherever they're at, that's what they're used to, bro. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them. And
So that's a local resident just, at the town council meeting talking about what's happening in Springfield, Ohio, and saying that. Now, there was a local news outlet I mentioned to you yesterday that reached out to the cops in Springfield and said, okay, well, and that's journalism. A reporter reaches out to the police and says, okay, residents are making these claims. A lot of chatter about whether or not animals are being abducted and eaten in Springfield, Ohio. Let me check in with the cops and see what they say. And the police, their response to the local newspaper is, we haven't received calls to this effect. Excellent journalism. You should do that. That's the first place to begin. Call the cops, find out what they're hearing. Right. But here's the thing. The local officials in Ohio, the lawmakers who represent Ohio, they say they're being inundated with people who are actually their constituents calling and saying, yeah, there is actually a problem, and there are animals being grabbed up in all of this. In fact, among them is Senator J.D. Vance, who, I should remind you, is a senator from Ohio. And J.D. Vance is, boy, I got to say, he is really demonstrating his talent as a running mate. This guy's smart. And I'm watching, there are people who attack him on X, and he'll respond in detail about why they're wrong in a way that few politicians are even capable of doing. J.D. Vance, very capable. And here's what he wrote today. In the last several weeks, my office has received many inquiries from actual residents of Springfield who said their neighbors' pets or local wildlife were abducted by Haitian migrants. It's possible, of course, that all of these rumors will turn out to be false. Do you know what's confirmed, says J.D. Vance? That a child was murdered by a Haitian migrant who had no right to be here. That local health services have been overwhelmed. That communicable diseases like TB and HIV have been on the rise. That local schools have struggled to keep up with the newcomers who don't know English. That rents have risen so fast that many Springfield families can't afford to put a roof over their head. Then he goes on to cite the fact that Kamala Harris has bragged about giving amnesty to thousands of Haitian migrants. She has, of course. If you're a reporter or an activist, says J.D. Vance, who didn't give a bleep about these suffering Americans until yesterday, I have some advice. Spare your outrage for your fellow citizens suffering under Kamala Harris's policies. Be outraged at yourself for letting this happen. That's J.D. Vance. Tim Walz could never. Tim Walz could never. I'd say, what a comparison, the two of these guys. J.D. Vance, he is so much better on an objective level than Tim Walz. It's ridiculous. It's almost like the Republicans chose Tim Walz to be Kamala's running mate. He's awful. Now, I want to get to the what you heard from J.D. Vance in that statement about a child being murdered. But before I do, I do want to take you back to the kind of the lighthearted moment today, which is this, that Eric Swalwell lost his mind. His staff printed out a picture of an AI photo that was shared on the House Judiciary account today by the Republicans. And it's a picture of Trump in a pond. Trump is in a full suit. He's in a pond up to his chest. He's got his arms wrapped around a kitten and a duck, and he's snuggling them close and protecting them in the pond. And the House Judiciary Republicans wrote the following on X today. They said, protect our ducks and kittens in Ohio. Isn't that great? That's a nice message. Everyone could get behind that. Protect the ducks and the kittens. And there's a picture of Trump holding them close, protecting them from the mean Democrats. So here's Eric Swalwell, who printed out the photo of the tweet to display it like it was going to help him politically or something, freaking out today in the House Judiciary Committee.
What in the hell is this? The chairman tweets, protect our ducks and kittens in Ohio because he goes down some crazy rabbit hole, completely debunked that aliens are eating pets? My God. Are you okay, Mr. Chairman? Because last year, for a very long time, you tweeted and promoted Kanye West as he was calling for genocide against the Jews, and you kept it up. And now, when we have victims coming here, you're tweeting this nonsense.
Oh.
I don't know why you would do this. I hope you're okay. I don't know if the aliens who are eating your ducks are in the room with us.
He's going
right
crazy. He has a huge photo of Trump hugging a duck and a cat behind him. The person who looks the best in this clip is Donald Trump. Donald Trump looks phenomenal. He's protecting these small animals from people like Eric Swalwell.
But, Mr. Chairman, this is a serious issue. These people have loved ones who have been lost, and you tweeted this.
And he doesn't even care about them. So the people that were in front of Eric Swalwell, what he's referring to, Among them is our guest coming up at 5 o'clock, Patty Morin, who's the mother of Rachel Morin, who was attacked and murdered by an illegal alien while jogging in Maryland. So we're going to talk to Patty today about what that experience was like. And the Democrats treated these families like garbage today. Just to be super clear about what actually happened, garbage today. But back to Springfield, Ohio for a moment. J.D. Vance mentions that a child was killed by a Haitian foreign national. And he's right about that. In fact, that man was sentenced earlier this year to at least 9 years in prison. Doesn't sound like it's long enough. For inducing a bus crash by crashing his vehicle into a school bus. Not only was an 11-year-old boy killed in that, his name's Aiden Clark, 11 years old. More than 20 others were injured in this wreck. Now, why did that wreck take place? What happened? The local news outlet, Spectrum News, on this one in Springfield, they said a man who was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter and vehicular homicide for a Clark County bus crash in August of 2023, last year, was sentenced to prison on Tuesday. Hermanio Joseph, 36, sentenced to at least 9 to 13 and a half years in prison with credit for time served. In August of 2023, a bus was transporting 52 students to Northwestern local schools. Shortly after 8 o'clock in the morning that day, the bus went down what's called State Route 41 when a Honda Odyssey driving eastbound crossed the center line. When the bus tried to go off the right side of the road, it collided with the minivan being driven by Joseph. The bus overturned. An 11-year-old boy named Aiden Clark died. More than 20 others were injured, according to the court documents. Nathan Clark, the father, spoke during the sentencing, addressing Joseph. He's the Haitian foreign national. Because of Mr. Joseph, our hearts will always be incomplete, he said. He ended his life with the poor decision he made. He did that. Nothing he can say or do will ever make up for what he did, said Aiden's brother, Preston Clark. Throughout the trial, they say Joseph showed emotions and remorse. Through the help of a translator, Joseph said he was sorry. And as a husband and father himself, he understands the pain. The judge took a lot into consideration before the sentence, saying that Joseph deserves some degree of mercy and grace, but not much, the judge said. And the outlet Spectrum points out Joseph is a Haitian immigrant, wasn't under the influence, and didn't mean to crash, but he didn't have a license. He has a state ID, and he's been living in the area for about a year before the crash. In other words, let in by Biden and Harris in a program that is rife with fraud, as foreign nationals are defrauding the United States in order to get in, including about who their sponsors in the country are. And so here you have just one story, one. Out of 20,000 Haitian migrants coming into Springfield, Ohio, one of them responsible for this accident. But if you look, I've been following some of the local news coverage of Springfield, Ohio. There's an independent journalist who went out there and was interviewing residents and asking about, what is going on with driving in particular. There's apparently a major concern among the residents of Springfield, the 58,000 who lived there, is that a lot of the Haitians who've arrived don't even know how to drive. So this could be one of those stories. And they're getting in vehicles, and they're a disaster on the road. In fact, here's the beginning. This is this independent reporter, Tyler Oliveira, capturing this interview with a local Springfield resident.
Managers are nothing but a headache. All they're doing is raising our rent and our taxes and wrecking vehicles, and there's just been nothing but a hassle since they've been here. It's been horrible.
How would you rank their driving from 1 to 10?
A -10. They're horrible. The worst driving I've ever seen. I'm from down south.
Yeah, all right. So and there's a lot more to that video, but just minutes on end of him talking to local residents going, this is a disaster. And in fact, they even get the camera at one point in a car. They're driving, they're watching as people are moving at a glacial pace and taking illegal turns and messing up. And so how do you integrate 20,000 people into a town of 58,000? The DMV refused to answer questions, by the way. That guy ran to the DMV. Was like, how's everybody getting licenses so fast? How is everybody getting all these Haitians just arrived? How are they getting into vehicles behind the wheel on the roads of Springfield, Ohio? Sorry, I can't answer that question. Sorry, we can't talk about that. What do you mean you can't talk about that? You can't tell people what's happening? How it's happening? It's all Biden-Harris. They're doing this. This is happening in towns across the country. This is a microcosm. And the left is freaking out. Oh, it's a hoax. They're not eating the animals. There's no reports. Okay. But tell me why I should be comfortable that 20,000 people, equivalent to now 25% of the population of Springfield, Ohio, were just airdropped onto the town. Am I supposed to feel good about that? And what is Kamala Harris going to do next if she gets more power? We'll go into that in just a moment. It's 3:22.
Tomorrow on the Chris Plant Show, Hillary Clinton talking to Kamala and giving her pointers on debating, like throw an ashtray at his head. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
Look, the problems afflicting Springfield, Ohio only get worse if Kamala Harris graduates from vice president to president. It's going to get a lot worse. She's promising amnesty on her campaign website. She didn't even have an issues page until like 24 hours ago. They thought they'd squeak one in just ahead of the debate. And have you seen what happened with that issues page? They just took it from the Biden campaign. Somebody clicked into the source code for the website. You know, you can see the HTML source code, and you can go through it. And there's tags and things inside of it. And they discovered it was just ripped right off of Biden's issue page back when he was a candidate. So they're just making it up. And my guess is Kamala Harris has no idea what's even on her issues page. Or Tim Walz, for that matter. But now she's got a little issues page. And on it, she's promising amnesty. Amnesty. You know what that means? That means citizenship for millions upon millions of illegal aliens that this administration brought into the country. This is as radical as it gets. Heck, CNN had this report last night that Kamala Harris supported genital mutilation for captured migrants. What? Yeah. She says you can get sex change operations while you're in ICE detention. These are the things that she believes in. She's a psychopath and should be nowhere near power, and yet she's so frustratingly close. A big debate tonight. We will talk more about that border crisis and what we should hope to hear at the debate this evening with our next guest, Mark Krikorian from the Center for Immigration Studies, just moments away.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up today, Rob Bluey joins us from the Daily Signal. We'll talk to him about that big debate this evening in Philadelphia between President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. I'll give us a preview there. He'll be in attendance. And then at 5 o'clock, we welcome Patty Morin to the program. She's the mother of Rachel Morin, who was attacked, murdered by an illegal alien in Maryland. Patty was among a number of families testifying today before Congress. We'll share some of that testimony with you and find out more from her about how that went. And then Curtis Houck is here at 5:30 from Newsbusters. We'll chat with him about the media's coverage of everything going on in the country. And you can join us, as always, at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. As you've heard, certainly, or as you've seen around the country, but definitely heard in the last half hour here, a big focus for the country is what the hell's going on with our border. And how much damage has Kamala Harris and company done while they've been in office, and can it be turned around? And with any luck, that will actually be, in part, the subject of tonight's debate because it means so much to the voters and to any country that cares about having its sovereignty. For more on this topic, I want to bring in the excellent Mark Krikorian. He's the executive director of the Center for Immigration Studies, and he joins us now. Mark, good to have you back with us, sir.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I just want to start with a big picture question. From January of 2021 to now, how has the picture changed for us as a country in terms of all of these foreign nationals who've poured in?
Well, I mean, over the past 3.5+ years, this administration has let in more illegal aliens than any country anywhere, as far as I can tell. Because if you remember back in 2015, 2016, there was this issue, a whole bunch of supposedly Syrian refugees, but they were all kinds of things from the Middle East going into Europe. And that was a big deal. It convulsed politics, all kinds of things. That was like less than half the size of what this Biden-Harris administration has done in letting in millions of people who have no right to be here. Interestingly, most immigrants who have come to the United States since Biden and Harris were inaugurated have done so illegally. In other words, illegal immigration is now the main way of coming into the United States rather than legally.
So, I mean, that makes sense to me. So what – I know that the number is hard to pin down because we actually don't really know. But what number do you use when you describe how many illegals have come in since January of 21?
Well, the number I think that's most important is the number of people who were in custody, in other words, that the Homeland Security, the Border Patrol, or the CBP had in their hands and then let go into the United States. And that number is approaching 4 million people. This is not counting, gotaways, but it's counting everybody who walked across the border and turned themselves in, everybody who's being let in on these supposed lawful pathways, they call them, where they parole people in who make appointments to schedule their illegal immigration, basically, at the border or at airports. Some of them fly in. And you put all that together, it's at this point, it's got to be over. Well, it's close to or over 4 million people that they had in their hands, and they chose to break the law by letting them go. The law requires they be detained.
So why does that sound like such a conservative estimate relative to some of the other numbers we've heard, as the closer to 10 or 15 million?
Well, first of all, it doesn't include gotaways. Those are people that the Border Patrol knows about, has pictures or something, but they didn't catch them. So that's probably another 2 million or more people. And then it doesn't include the unknown gotaways, people the Border Patrol didn't know about. And it doesn't include visa overstayers, because a big share of illegal immigration, remember, is people who come in legally as tourists and students and what have you, and then just never leave.
Right.
And the final point I'd make about this is sometimes, people just, they kind of get carried away with themselves and just start, adding a million more here and a million more there.
Yeah.
And, there's plenty of illegal aliens here. The problem is terrible enough. We don't need to exaggerate.
So, and then you mentioned, by way of comparison, you say our legal immigration system is not bringing in that many people anywhere close. And my understanding is, on an average year, we bring in about 1 million legal immigrants. Right. Is that still the truth?
Yeah, and it fluctuates a little bit from here and there because spouses of U.S. citizens, for instance, aren't counted. Aren't limited. They're counted, but there's no cap. So sometimes it'll be higher, sometimes it'll be lower.
Got it.
Obviously, because of COVID, the numbers were a little lower. But yeah, about 1 million a year. And so it's significantly more than legal immigration. Illegal immigration is the main way of coming into the United States under Biden and Harris.
It's crazy. So I was talking this hour about the saga of Springfield, Ohio. It's gotten a lot of attention this week because of rumors, concerns that animals were being snatched up and eaten by some of the migrants who've arrived there. But at its core is a really important story that is unimpeachably true, which is 20,000 people, Haitian foreign nationals, have just been airdropped on Springfield, Ohio over the course of the last 2 years. And that's a town of just 58,000 people who lived there to begin with. How does something like that happen? How do you drop 20,000 people on one town in Ohio?
Good question. Some of it is because, the housing is cheap and Catholic Charities decides that's where they're going to send people. Some of it also is driven independently by migrants themselves, where if there's, they're relocated somewhere where there's no countrymen of theirs. And then they hear that their second cousin is in Springfield, Ohio, and there's a lot of other Haitians there. And so they figure, okay, well, let's pack up and go there because then we're going to be, sort of with our own folks and it'll be more comfortable. So both of those things do that. And you got to, whether they're eating the cats or not is almost, it's, the people online have a lot of fun with that, but that's a distraction. It doesn't matter. The issue is that radical change like that is simply unconservative in a lowercase c kind of way. Change in general should be low and slow. Things are always going to change, but they should change slowly so people can adapt. And
Right.
immigration is an example of that. Low and slow. If you have two Haitian families show up in Springfield, Ohio, okay, well, whatever. They'll peer pressure will kind of get them to change their behavior, and when in Rome, do as the Romans do, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You have 20,000 people, they start, where's the peer pressure coming from?
Well, this is, I mean, the whole point of assimilation is that communities can become cohesive cultures together. Despite their disparate backgrounds, that they can merge together. The melting pot is the way it's been talked about in the past, and assimilate together. But that is like, that goal is gone. The left doesn't care about that at all, Mark Krikorian. Now it's like, no, we're going to have a million divergent cultures all slammed together, and that are totally incompatible. And it's not going to work. We're never going to ask anybody to try and assimilate into a culture that exists here in the United States. We're just going to create constant chaos. And by the way, we're going to drop it on poor communities. We're going to drop it on people who are not in power and can't defend themselves, who don't live on Martha's Vineyard. And I just Springfield, Ohio, it feels like it's just one example of something that's playing out all across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, your point about assimilation is valid, especially in ways that are different today than in the past. Because in the past, there are two things that are really different from, say, 100 or 200 years ago. One is communications and transportation means that you can, keep your ties with the old country. You can live in two countries at the same time. You don't have to pull up your roots and refocus your emotions and your loyalties from one place to another. But
right.
The other thing is, in our society, as opposed to, say, when my mother was a child, we have institutions and leadership classes that simply don't believe in assimilating. They don't think American culture is particularly good. There shouldn't be a common culture that everybody subscribes to. And so they go to school, the kids go to school, and they're taught that, George Washington is evil and all the rest of that baloney. And it's not the immigrants doing that. We're doing that to ourselves. But how can we keep taking immigrants in if we're not prepared to Americanize them?
I want to ask you one last question about the Haitian migration to Springfield, Ohio, because these, as I understand it, the 20,000 Haitian foreign nationals who have arrived there have come in under the Biden administration's parole program. Is that right? Or at least we should assume that?
Yeah, I mean, at least some substantial portion of them. Other people may be from Miami, moved there once other people moved there. But yes, they have come under what's in shorthand called the CHNV program, which covers people from Haiti and 3 other nationalities. And so if they don't have visas, they get to just online say, I want to come to the United States and I don't like where I live. And then the State Department will say, okay. And they get to just come in, and they have supposedly have a sponsor. But this program was actually suspended several weeks ago because it was a total scam.
Yes.
There were like fake addresses that people said this is where our sponsor lives.
One person said that Michelle Obama was his sponsor to get into the country.
Used her passport number or whatever I mean, it's ludicrous. The whole thing is a total scam. We wrote that it was open to fraud and this was going to happen, and they did it anyway, and surprise, surprise, there's fraud.
So that program, the one that's rife with fraud, when it says you have a sponsor, does that sponsor have to be an American citizen, or is just anybody who's gotten over the finish line?
It can be anybody. It can be a person who got paroled in a week before. No, it's complete.
What a disaster. What a disaster.
It's even worse. Believe me, it's worse than you think.
Oh, my God. All right, let's talk about this debate tonight. So Kamala Harris is going to square off against President Trump, and I am pleading, ABC, please ask questions about this, because this is what's on the mind of Americans. They really, all the polling is super clear on this. They'd like their borders back. And Kamala Harris's campaign can even detect that sentiment. She now claims she's for a border wall, Mark Krikorian.
Yeah.
What would you like to see tonight on that stage in terms of questions and accountability?
Without going into all the detail, we actually on our website have a blog post with a number of questions, half a dozen or so questions for both of them, and then half a dozen or so each for the 2 separate candidates. So, there's some if people want to, the debate moderators aren't listening to your show probably, but if they are, go check out CIS.org, and it's right there.
CIS.org.
I think for the main, first thing for the vice president is, do you support building more border wall? Yes or no? Because do you now support immigrant detention of illegal aliens until they're deported? Yes or no? Because these are things that she was against. She has not said that she's changed her mind. She's had anonymous campaign officials leak to reporters that she's changed her mind. I want them to say, tell us tonight, right now, do you believe this should be changed? Do you think that crossing the border illegally should be decriminalized? Do you favor more border walls construction? Yes or no? That's simple as that. In other words, try to pin her down, because you're never going to get another chance.
Yeah.
And I'd say for Trump, too, we have some questions. He's talked about wanting, high levels of legal immigration. He's like, we want more people. We just want to make sure they're legal. Well, if all these people showing up in Springfield, Ohio, had all been let in legally, would that make it any better?
Right.
It's so anyway. There are things to pin both candidates down on, and I don't think it shouldn't be that hard.
Yes. Instead, I feel like I can see it coming a million miles away. That the questions tonight are, to the extent that they talk about this at all, they're going to be trying to grill Trump about deportations. Really?
Yep.
You're going to deport everybody? Yep. You heartless dictator? You're going to deport everybody? That's going to be I can almost guarantee that'll be the entire immigration section of the debate tonight.
Well, it'll be family separations. Do you really want to separate, families from their kids, that kind of stuff? And I got to say, on the deportation thing, Senator Vance, they pressed him on that, and he's like, well, how about let's just deport the first million who are criminals, and then we'll worry about the second million. In other words, start at the beginning and then see how it goes.
Yes.
Don't sort of get into this discussion of, are we going to round up all 15 million or 20, whatever number people come up with? And we'll see how it goes tonight. And
go after employers in the United States who exploit foreign labor who are off the books, pay them like unbelievably low wages, and then do it at the expense of American workers. Like, if you decrease the incentives for people to illegally migrate to the United States, this problem can resolve itself.
Yeah, I mean, look, the vice president was put in charge of root causes. Remember that? And that's what they call push factors. In other words, the things that would push people to leave Honduras, for instance. But there's also pull factors, which is, especially the biggest one, is the ease of getting a job illegally. Well, they're not doing anything about the pull factors, and that is arguably, or at least as important as the root causes stuff. And yet, her campaign isn't even broaching the issue.
Yeah, no, not at all. All right, a lot more to talk about, and I can't wait to have you back so we can do it. Mark Krikorian from the Center for Immigration Studies. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That's Mark's so good, isn't he? Good. He's great. All right, it is 3:51 now.
WMAL, making sense of the border, because laws either matter or they don't. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
A lot of calls coming in. Let's get to some of them. I've got Mike calling in from Waldorf, Maryland, line 4. Mike, good afternoon, sir. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon, Vince. I just would like to mention that Dave Chappelle has a 65-acre farm in Yellow Springs, Ohio, which is about 20 minutes from Springfield. So I didn't know if he would be affected by any of these 20,000 immigrants. He's done a lot of work there. He had a concert on the farm during 2020 and COVID, and done some build-up in the town of Yellow Springs. So if there's any thoughts or perspective on, rich people there too, I'm like, I haven't heard a peep out of those guys.
It's funny you say that. I almost expect Dave Chappelle to weigh in on something like this. I'm looking now. Yeah, 20 minutes. You're right. 18 minutes specifically, according to the internet. 9.8 miles away, so Dave Chappelle very close to all of this. I'm curious if he'd jump into this. I like Dave Chappelle. He's funny, and so we'll see. We'll see. That's a good leading kind of indicator of what might come next, Mike. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That's Mike weighing in. Dave Chappelle lives near there, he says. Let's see. Hey, Chris in Marshall, line 1. Chris, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
From the front line of the heartland, try that stuff in a small town. I challenge it. So I thought Hillary solved all the problems in Haiti.
Turns out that money didn't go to helping solve problems.
But there are a couple of very serious points about this I wanted to make. That's just kind of a funny, but, there's a facet to the First Amendment that not enough people recognize or acknowledge, and that's freedom of association, which means you can hang out with who you want to.
Sure.
And you cannot hang out who you don't want to.
That's true. So you're saying it might be a problem that a bunch of strangers are dropped in your community without your consent? That by your government specifically? Yeah, that sounds like a huge problem. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. I always love talking to Chris. He'll call back. We'll have more of a conversation. Stay with us. Coming up on the program, Rob Bluey from the Daily Signal. He's in Philly tonight for that debate. We'll get a preview from him.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Mommy, want to play a game with me and Dad?
Mommy's not feeling good.
You need to vaporize that cold.
Vaporize?
Yeah, with DayQuil VapoCool. It's DayQuil plus a rush of Vicks vapors.
Whoa.
Come on, honey. Let's let Mommy rest.
You guys are amazing. And so is DayQuil VapoCool.
DayQuil VapoCool, the vaporizing daytime coughing, aching, fever, power through your day medicine. And to vaporize sore throat pain, try Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single line 1, 5, and 10 gig data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon January 2024.
Hey Eldorados, Larry Elder here. By now you're probably hearing a lot about why refi. You may also have seen my commercials on Newsmax or on Fox News. So what's going on? How is it that investors all over the country are earning a fixed rate of return of 10.25% and they don't care what happens with the stock market or the Fed? Well, let's start with the facts. It's true. There is no attack on your principal if you ever need your money back. And yes, it's true. You're in control. You can let your investment compound daily or take income, whatever you choose. And yes, it's true. There are absolutely no